What's up? I'm John Middlekauff, host of the GoLow podcast. You can find it below in the description. Also, you're watching this on the Volumes YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe, share it with all your friends. What is going on, everybody? GoLow podcast with a lot, and I repeat, a lot going on in the golfing world. Could argue the golfing world right now with LIV Golf versus the PGA, Rory versus Phil, the Shark versus everybody is as Brooks Koepka said today at the U.S. Open, it's a black cloud. It's overshadowing, however you want to say it. Now, Brooks, I like edgy Brooks, but getting mad at a press conference when your brother joined the league, I don't know if I'm giving you a pass on that one, my man. But a lot going on. It's U.S. Open week, this country's national championship for golfers. Well, the LIV is stealing guys left and right. And multiple guys who have won this tournament in the last half decade, Bryce and DJ, are now on their tour. It's just, how do we avoid it? And we're obviously going to talk a lot about that. At GoLow is the Instagram. Fire into the direct messages. At GoLow Pod. At GoLow Pod to get your question answered here on the show. We do the same thing football. I'll probably have another GoLow Pod Sunday night after the U.S. Open with not much football-wise going on. And we'll have football podcast on Friday. Middlekauff Mailbag is just my Instagram, my personal Instagram. So we got a lot of content going on right now. But as a lover of golf, and if you're listening to this on Wednesday, I'm literally on the golf course. I thought this week was kind of sad. And listen, I am not Brandel or Eamon Lynch or some of these big J's that are acting morally superior. Now, I'm not saying I agree with everything that's going on or disagree with everything that's going on. I just, a little bit like Justin Thomas said, it's not my place to tell you where to take money or not. That's all of our individual situations. That's on you and your family. Ultimately, when DJ said this was a decision for my family, that's a fact. Every decision you make, the older you get, is family-based. It's the way the real world works. It's easy for someone to say you shouldn't have done that when they didn't have the fucking offer, and you did. So I understand why these older guys went. I get it. The amount of money that is being moved around is insane. But I like to think of things, because this is ultimately who I am, from the fan's point of view. I am a consumer first. I watch football games on my couch. I watch all these PGA golf tournaments on my couch. This is what I talk about with my family and friends. The stuff I watch, other fans. And we all lose in this situation. Because ultimately, what's best for us, and we are the people, not necessarily the Saudis, kind of, because we're driving everywhere, but for the PGA Tour that provide every penny through the media rights because we give them TV ratings, is I want to see the best players play each other in the biggest tournaments. That's what we all want. I don't want Patrick Mahomes to play in one football league and Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers to play in another. I want Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes to play Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, and Lamar Jackson, and Dak Prescott, and Jimmy G, and you name it. I want them all to play under the same umbrella. And in football, they do. The reason all these Euros come over here to hoop, because we got the best league, and we got the most money. Now, here's where I will defend the Euros. I'm from America, born and raised. I ain't ever leaving. Well, you never say never, but more than likely, I'm going to live in America my entire life. This is where I'm from, and luckily, because of capitalism, this is where I can make all my money. Well, some of these guys, Lee Westwood, Sergio Garcia, you name it, there are a lot of other younger names that are being rumored to go. They didn't necessarily want to come to America. Maybe some did. But if the best league would have been in the country they were born at, in a country that was much closer to where they grew up at, they probably would never have come over here. The reason Nikola Jokic and Luka Doncic play in the NBA is because this is where you can make hundreds of millions of dollars against the best player. If those guys could have stayed in Eastern Europe and played for $60, $70 million a year, endorsements and on the court, against the best players, you know what? They never would have came. I understand those guys not having much allegiance to, quote-unquote, America. Because that is kind of, to me, what the PGA Tour represents, the domestic league. I know they play in Canada, but ultimately their events are based in America. So when those guys want to bounce, I have no issue with it. Now, ultimately, a league is only as strong as its stars, and you get a star, like Steph Curry became a star in the NBA. Patrick Mahomes became a star in the NFL. Without those leagues, those guys would not have the star power. Phil Mickelson and Bryson DeChambeau, and Phil's bigger than Bryson, but Bryson's a rock star too, are as big as they are because of the PGA Tour. I think my pushback on the LIV and just this situation is when it splinters golf, and that's what's happening, and it's only going to happen more because these guys are signing long-term deals. They're not getting $100 million for 1 year. This is a 4 and 5 year deal. LIV is not going away, and we all know they don't even care about turning a profit. And clearly the PGA Tour has things that they have to overcome, which they might not be able to because of the charity element to their tour. But players are going to continue to go. Because ultimately, when someone offers you $50 million and you don't have $50 million, it's hard to say no. When someone offers you $100 million, and here's the other thing. The simple reality, and we're going to talk about this over and over, is the PGA Tour, and we'll get into Jay Monahan, has some problems, has some issues, and has some things they're going to lose in court. You don't have the right. I'm a 1099 guy. I haven't had a W-2 in almost 7 years. No one can dictate where I can work and where I can't. I can work and do whatever the fuck I want. That's part of the benefit of doing what I do. Now, there's no guarantee if things go haywire, it could get ugly. I have no security in my life. Everything is based on my ability to earn, and I have to go out and do it. If I don't do these podcasts, I will not make money. Simple as that. But also, these people don't have the right to tell me where and when I can record and who I can record with. When you work for a W-2 or like a football player does, an NFL team has the power to tell you what you can and can't do. The PGA Tour does not. So I am on these guys' sides. So when Phil complains to be like, I've worked long and hard for this membership, I'm not giving it up. I'm willing to fight. And I heard on No Laying Up, I think a week ago or 2 weeks ago, or actually I heard it on the Tour Junkies podcast. They had on Danny Woodhead. And Greg Norman told players when he recruited them, not only will whatever your price point is, we have $100 million earmarked to fight the PGA Tour in litigation. They want the smoke. They want it because deep down he knows the litigation is going to be on their side. Because ultimately in this country, we tend to be employee first. We just do in terms of their rights, especially when it comes to independent contractors. And that's what golfers are. But my overall issue is like, I don't want to see Bryson. I don't want to see Patrick Reed leave. Part of having the best possible league, and I think the PGA Tour was on fire these last several years. It had never been bigger post-Tiger. And we know like Tiger's going to be very limited moving forward. The star power of the young players was fantastic. The drama was awesome. But you need stars and you need villains. And let's face it, Bryson DeChambeau was a star and a villain at the same time. Patrick Reed might be a little more golf nerdy, but everyone on the internet knows he's like a cheater. He was also a villain. So when you lose those two guys, you can't just have a bunch of choir boys. It's like Moose Johnson told me a long time ago when I interviewed him on the radio. To have a great football team, you need characters that can play, and you need players of character. It's no different in a league. You need some drama. That's good for business. Like ultimately NASCAR, when they got some good guys and they got some bad guys. Same thing with F1. If you're going to have some of these individual sports, tennis had it forever. They have guys you root for, guys you hate. You can't lose all the guys you hate. And so far, Sergio, Bryson, Patrick Reed, that ain't ideal. It's just not. So ultimately, I don't care if it's LIV, the PGA, the PGL, make up any league you want. I just want the best players playing in these tournaments. Now, you could argue beside the four majors, the Ryder Cup, and really the players, most tournaments were fragmented and only getting worse. And I'd say, yeah, that might be true. So maybe I'm being nostalgic of what this is. But I think JT said it best. This just sucks. It really does. Now, when Jay Monahan got on the mic during Sunday's awesome RBC event with Rory, JT, Tony Finau, and Justin Rose going for like 55, I thought he was embarrassing. I thought he was terrible. I have no problem in personal interactions with your wife, with your children, with your parents getting emotional. I have no problem when you are an employee getting emotional when you feel taken advantage of or screwed. But when you're a head coach, when you're the CEO, even if you're the dad in your family, there are points in time in your life where you have to show strength. You can't look overly emotional, even though we're all humans. Inside, we might be freaking out. That is, no one disputes that you're not allowed to feel that inside. But as a leader, you have to show strength. And I thought Jay Monahan, and listen, a lot of people have talked about he's not a great public speaker. The no laying up guys, I thought, said it well. You know, there are leaders and generals and wartime presidents and then peacetime presidents. Not everyone is equal. And this guy is clearly a peacetime leader. Because now that times are tough, like when he starts dropping 9/11, I just thought, like, what is this accomplishing? Are you trying to make these guys that take the money give it back? They're not going to do that. You're losing. You have to figure out a way to make tangible change, whether that's raising more money, whether that's a way to find more money to funnel to these guys. You have to find solutions because right now you have problems and you are the boss. You are the commissioner. You can't look as emotional as you do and you're freaking out. And I understand why you're freaking out. Losing Bryson, losing Gooch, losing some of these other names that are rumored is going to be a problem. Because ultimately, the PGA Tour, like we talked about, they don't own any of the majors. The majors are not theirs. They have the players. And ultimately, I would be shocked if the lawyers aren't telling him, like, we're going to lose in court. It feels like his one play is a losing play. And I would have questions and if I was on the PGA Tour, because ultimately, it's a member-run organization. They are basically the owners of the sport. No different than Roger Goodell works for the owners. Jay Monahan works for the players. I would question, what are we going to do? I had a longtime PGA Tour player tell me, this goes back to years ago. Phil Mickelson has just been raising basic questions. When Fox got the U.S. Open years ago, they got basically almost $100 million for that tournament a year. And the purse was only $15 million. And we talk about revenue sharing, players go, where is the money? They're not asking the purse should be $90 million if you get $100 million for the tournament. But how is that purse not $40? Because I know I'm part of revenue sharing agreements. And it's pretty black and white. Where is the cash going? Now, Greg Norman, clearly, I read an article today in the Washington Post. Back in the late 80s, early 90s. I'm sure many of you, if you've read about this or listened to this, he has tried to do this before. Guys like Greg Norman and Phil Mickelson hate, let me repeat, despise these 150-person events. They would rather get the top players, 40, 50 guys, and basically hoard the money. And you could argue they've earned that money because they're the best players. And there is some validity to that. Like, you don't want the guy that's the 145th guy in the tournament taking money away from you when the reason the money is there, at least for the PGA Tour, not the LIV, is because Phil Mickelson, Rory McIlroy, Tiger Woods is moving the needle on television where the cash comes from. The problem is the drama in these tournaments, historically, random guys going toe-to-toe with the big guys, helps create the drama of the league, which ultimately is a reality television show. That is what pro sports are now. Reality television. You could argue it's the best reality television. The NFL literally is in America, beside like politics. And I'd argue politics is fucking rigged. Where, at least in the NFL, now you could argue the referees, but, you know, politicians, like, nothing ever changes. It's just the same bullshit over and over and over again. At least in the NFL, different teams win. Different players emerge. And golf has always been like that too. It's why a couple years ago, I didn't know who Cam Smith is. I do now. Scotty Scheffler, most people couldn't have pointed him out of lineup 3 years ago. Now he is probably the leader in the clubhouse for Player of the Year, and he's a Masters champion. Ultimately, what LIV is going to lack is, how do they create stars? Now, luckily, they're a startup with an unlimited amount of money. They can constantly change because the shotgun start actually is not a bad idea for the first couple days. To me, on the last day, I would start it and stage it like a normal tournament, worst to best. So the guy leading the tournament tees off last. Because if you watch Rory and you watch JT and you watch Finau on Sunday at the RBC, there was a progression to the day. Rory takes the lead. Can these guys come back? Then Rory has a bogey and JT makes a par and all of a sudden he's even. And it's just and Justin Rose, could he be the leader in the clubhouse if he shoots 57? Like, that is the drama that draws us there. What the PGA Tour brought to the table on Sunday with those guys, LIV is not going to have in the bag. Now, what they do have in the bag is the ability at the snap of a finger to go, we're changing it, no more shotgun starts, or we're doing this, or we're doing that. The PGA Tour literally never does. They do the same thing over and over and over again. Now, the best thing Jay has going for him is, 3 of his 4 most famous players, not named Tiger Woods, would be Rory McIlroy. To me is by far the most famous. Jordan Spieth, Jon Rahm, and Justin Thomas. Jordan is probably a little more reserved in this situation, even though there was a tweet about him going to say congratulations to Billy Horschel for winning the Memorial. Kevin Na went for a what's up, and Jordan didn't look at him, walked away. Love it. I feel very patriotic, even though Rahm is a Spaniard and Rory is an Irishman, but he lives in Jupiter. Rahm lives in Scottsdale. They feel like we've adopted them. Obviously, Rahm went to college here in the States, and they love the PGA Tour. And they have not just been loyal throughout the PGA Tour, they have actively, especially Rory, talked shit about Greg Norman. They have talked shit about the LIV guys, which is cool, which creates some animosity and actually, to me, is kind of interesting. And this is where it gets back to Jay. Like, eventually, do you capitulate a little bit and go, you want to play us? You want to create some events of us versus you? Because here's the reality. There is no amount of money that Jay Monahan and the PGA Tour is going to be able to raise that's going to go toe-to-toe with the Saudis. Because you can't raise money when you can't give other people ROIs in normal business. Well, they clearly aren't playing by those rules. They're playing by the rules of we have unlimited amounts of cash, we don't care about making money, and we really care about destroying you. So when someone does that, you have to think, well, we don't want to get destroyed. Can we work together? And at this point in time, clearly Jay is not on board with that. But if they figure out ways to get more money for everyone, maybe that is a potential solution. I'm not saying I have the answers. I just know overall where this is trending, and watching the broadcast, which, talking to Sobel here in a little bit, every single player last week that's in like the top 250, you could argue every player in the top like 100 or 1,000 Korn Ferry guys peaked at the LIV broadcast, and it looked professional. And then when you see the amount of money flying, like, they're a real threat / problem / they're going to be a factor. So you have to figure ways, like when your competition, when you are the Yankees, you don't have to worry about the Tampa Bay Rays at first. But a decade later, when they constantly win, you have to take them seriously. And the difference is the Yankees have the money and the Tampa Bay Rays do not. Over the last several decades, the Red Sox went toe-to-toe with the Yankees financially. It's why they have more World Series championships than the Yankees. No one would argue that the Yankees aren't the biggest brand in all of baseball, and arguably beside the Cowboys in America. But they don't win all the time. And the PGA Tour, you can start losing literally guys, even if quote-unquote your brand is way bigger. But the way you gain brands in individual sports, we see it happening forever in wrestling, is you take stars. It's why when I was a kid, WWF went to WCW, and guys, as long as you got Hulk Hogan and you got Triple H, and if I get The Rock and I can get Stone Cold, it's no different in golf or tennis. If I can get Rafael Nadal, if I can get Roger Federer, if I can get Djokovic, if I can get Andre Agassi, it's about individual talents. Like ultimately football, the brands, the Steelers, the Packers, the 49ers, right? The Eagles, the Giants. That's not the way it works in individual sports. So you got to figure out a way to keep stars / compensate them at higher levels. Now, I got to say this. I respect the hell out of Jon Rahm, Justin Thomas, and Rory McIlroy. Now, you can argue it's easy. They have a boatload of wealth. Jon Rahm on Tuesday essentially admitted to being offered $400 million. I think it's fair to say Jon Rahm, Rory McIlroy, and Tiger Woods were offered around $2 billion. The reports were Tiger turned down $900 million. If Jon Rahm was offered $400 million, what's Rory's price point? $7? So you were talking, and to me, Jordan Spieth would easily be worth $500-600 million. So the amount of money the top guys are turning down is, I don't care how much you got. If you're worth $150 million and someone offers you $500 million and you tell them to kick rocks, that takes some balls. It's easy for all of us to say, oh, that's an easy decision. Bullshit. That is difficult. I don't care where the money's coming from. And those guys haven't just done it. They have gone over the top of pledging their allegiance and saying how much it means to play in real golf tournaments. Jon Rahm basically called the tournament a joke. So did Rory McIlroy. They mean nothing. Because it's true. They do mean nothing. They don't mean a thing. And as long as you can keep the top guys, you have a chance. But ultimately, here's the problem. And Justin Thomas kind of alluded to this on Monday, is he doesn't have the power. He can just tell guys, I want to keep you here. I don't want to lose you. But I understand if you got to take the money, you got to take the money. Like, they don't have the juice. It's not like they're Jerry Jones or Roger Goodell where they can keep throwing revenue sources at these people. They're only as strong as the rest of the guys on the tour. Part of Rory and JT being great players is them beating everyone else. Well, you keep taking all these players away, it creates a problem. And I know Brooks Koepka said that it created a black cloud over the U.S. Open. It did. This is one of the biggest stories in America, definitely in all of sports. And back to what I said earlier, like, Brooks, your brother's in it. Like, I'm sorry, you're kind of part of it. But I think this is a very, very, the whole thing, it sucks. It's sad because it becomes complicated for us, the fan, for us, the consumer. But as someone that talks about this now for money, it's fascinating. And I think it's one of the bigger stories in golf since some of Tiger's scandals. And Phil Mickelson, you could argue, is taking a lot of unnecessary heat. I mean, the president of the United States going over Saudi Arabia like next week. We're all in bed with Saudi Arabia in some form or fashion. As a country, these individuals, these big companies, it's just a reality of life. But it's part of being really famous. It comes with the territory when you do quote-unquote controversial things. The media all has agendas and bias with this politically, which again, I don't care. Like, politically, I have no morals with this stuff. You know, if you're going to take the money, I get why you take the money. If you're going to stay, I get why you stay. Make a goddamn decision for yourself. But when you do go over there, you just might not be that relevant. How do I judge how good you are? And you could argue that most of the guys that have gone over so far are really, really old, right? Phil's 51 years old. Phil's a big draw. I'm sorry, like, Phil hasn't been that great the last couple of years. Putting him at PGA Tour events, even if it's just 5 or 6 of the biggest ones of the year minus the majors, is a big deal. People like to see him. There's a reason if you turn on WrestleMania and The Rock shows up, that matters. He's the most famous guy not named Tiger on the PGA Tour. Like, you want him around. You don't want to lose him. And like I said with Bryson, like, you don't want to lose your villains. Part of what sucks about Brady and Belichick breaking up is, like, they were the best villain in league history. It didn't get any better because most people hated them. But you know what they did? They had emotion. I had a wise person tell me a long time ago, if you're going to talk for a living, you want to be 2 things. You want to be loved, you want to be hated. You never want to be indifferent because the moment you're indifferent, they don't listen to you. You ever watch Howard Stern in Private Parts when Paul Giamatti freaks out because Howard's ratings are so high and he goes, how do people like this guy? And the person handing the ratings is like, our polling, not even necessarily that people like him, they just can't wait to hear what he says next. It's no different with golf. Your biggest stars, like, who's playing who. It's why Aaron Rodgers, people have opinions on the guy. Same with Tom Brady, same with Bill Belichick. That's what you want. And right now, this fragmented tour is sad. And speaking of it, like, the best part about it is the actual golf. And this is the U.S. Open, the toughest test of the year, where sometimes it's not inconceivable, and Sobel, as he'll tell me a little bit later, like, you never truly know what the winning score is going to be, but it's not inconceivable, but this winning score, he had a caddy tell him that they would take even right now in the clubhouse on Sunday afternoon. Like, this separates the men from the boys. Who's playing the best? who can drive it the straightest, who can hit these small greens, who's great around the green because the rough is outrageous, who has a great short game, who can handle the pressure. These crowds are going to be nuts. It's in Boston. They're playing in the NBA Finals. It's going to be hot. The booze is going to be flowing. I can't wait. But let's face it, the black cloud, like ultimately LIV is a huge part of this because who's to say that some of the LIV guys won't be in the mix? It's all kind of intertwined now, which I would say for Greg Norman is a good thing. He might be an egomaniac. A lot of people think he's a D-bag. But what he's doing, because he has these backers with just cash that is never going to run out, might work. And I barely even talked about the U.S. Open, and that's just the reality of where we are right now with the sport, which, again, as someone that talks for a living, I'm in. I want to give some of my bets before we get into Sobel. I broke it up into several parts. I have a lock of the week, which I placed one of the biggest golf bets I've ever placed. Usually I put $25 to $100. Either like I took a bunch of first-round leaders because you can place $25 and get $1,500, $1,800, $2,000. Took guys like Webb, Daniel Berger, Justin Rose. I think Bryson is somewhat undervalued right now. I know he's been injured, and I know he hasn't been playing, and I know the Saudi stuff, but here's a reality with Bryson. He won this tournament 2 years ago. Last year, he was winning on Sunday with 9 holes left before he had an all-time blow-up. He is built, born, bred, created for U.S. Opens. His power, if he's on, he can compete to win this tournament. And Keegan Bradley, who I also like. Those are just, I dabbled a little on the first-round leader. I put $100 on Will Zalatoris like a month ago, right after the PGA Championship. Jordan Spieth, also have a $100 bet on him. It was 25 to 1. Shane Lowry is a guy that a lot of people think that just translate to this course. I wanted to have value. I put half a unit on him. Patrick Reed is one of those guys which, again, everyone's going to be off the scent. Elite short game. So if he's hitting the ball straight off the tee, which can be a question, even though I think he changed his driver recently, he had a PXG. He's no longer hitting that. If his short game is on, he can compete to win this tournament. And when you can get a guy way down the board with win equity, I can't get off him. I wouldn't say this is a flyer, but this is a guy just who's a great ball striker, who's got some mojo coming in, Tommy Fleetwood to top 5. But my lock, and the biggest bet I ever made, I put $1,000 golf bet. I put $1,000 on DJ a couple years ago to top 5 at the Masters. And it was awesome. I think it was like 3 to 1, and he did. He ended up winning the tournament. I don't feel that. I mean, this tournament's going to be really hard. It's very difficult to just, you got to spread your money around. But I think that Justin Thomas, one, feels a lot of pride in what he represents right now. He is playing the best golf of his life. Him and Bones have this kind of yin and yang thing going where it's like, I'm not betting against these guys. I have him to top 10. You get it on FanDuel, plus 125. That is my lock of the weekend. I do not see a scenario where Justin Thomas is not in the mix come the weekend. I think he could easily win the tournament, but I definitely like him to top. I love him to top 10. So that right now is my betting card. I just looked. Bryson is way down the board. You can get him 110, 120 to 1 to win this tournament. Again, a guy who won it 2 years ago and was leading with 9 holes left last year. Some stuff's changed for sure, but that's the type value. Koepka, DJ, these guys that have won this tournament before. The hardest tournament to win. The one you have to grind it out. The one that just wipes out a ton of people immediately. These guys have win equity. You can get them to top 10 like 4, 5, 6 to 1. Now, you can argue that they don't care, they're over it, but just look at guys who have won the U.S. Open before that are way down the board because it might just be simply as the Saudi stuff, they're getting discounted.